Hello, back again making more sourdough. Today I'm making several loaves, so I'm getting started. The first thing I want to do, this one is going to be a star-shaped loaf made out of sourdough. I'm going to split the dough into 3 parts. So I'm making basically a 1.5 size dough that I normally make. And this way, and it's just a straight sourdough, no flavors, but I'm going to roll them out and spread strawberry jam in the middle and then make the star pattern, which I'll show you all later. I've got the flour all ground, and this is just, once again, it's the 875 or 825 grams of wheat. Got a nice coarse, not too coarse, but a nice mix. Our 3 teaspoons of salt. 1, 2, 3. All right, and then we're going to add our water. And I like to do this, add the water, mix this all up, make sure we've got a nice wet dough, and then I'll cover this and let it sit for 15 minutes. And then, just to let the flour utilize, let it soak up all that moisture and get ready to go. And then we'll add the yeast. If I have to, we'll add a little more water because this ratio works well for me. I have no idea what percentage it is. I've never really cared to look at it. I just know it's a little more than most people use with commercially available flour, because the whole wheat, fresh milled flour, soaks up more moisture. So you have to add more water to get this to go. And I think I am going, it seems to be a little dry. I'm going to add a little bit more because I just want this to come together. And if you don't have enough moisture, it is definitely going to cause problems. Because I like sourdough because it has a tendency to just be easy to work with. With the stretch and folds and everything, it just makes it better. All right, so that dough is nice and wet. You can see it's kind of a shaggy, but it's not really a dough yet because we haven't added the yeast. So I'm going to cover this with plastic. And we're going to let that sit for 15 minutes. So it's had a chance to get that water absorbed into the flour. Now, we're going to get out our yeast, because we've already got our flour, salt, and water mixed up. We're going to add the yeast starter. And I'm going to knead that in. There, that's feeling pretty darn incorporated. Now, that's going to work its way throughout the dough anyway and do what it does. So we're going to put it back in the bowl and we're going to cover that. There, and now we're going to set it aside. I like to put it in the oven. I have a proof cycle on the oven, so I can set it up for 95 degrees, and I'll turn that on and off throughout the day. But so I'll put this in the oven, let it sit for an hour, and then I will come back and we'll start the stretch and folds. And I usually like to do about 4 of those, spaced a half hour apart. It doesn't have to be exactly half hour. I've left them for an hour and up to an hour and a half in between, and the dough will do what it does, and we'll just go with it. All right. Okay, we're back. The bread is still in its first hour in the oven, proofing, basically setting up. So before we start the stretch and folds, so I've got about a half hour left. But I'm gonna start making the jam because I want this cool and set up. So I have quartered 1.5 pounds strawberries. Now normally the recipe calls for 2, but I didn't buy that much, and I'm just going to change the ratio. And it calls for the recipe I like to use. It's 2 pounds of strawberries to a half a cup of honey, or up to a cup of honey, depending if you like it sweeter or not. And I don't bother with pectin or anything like that. I like to just go, and I don't like to make a ton of it because I don't want to have it. I've tried canning. I don't like to can. So we're going to put those in the pan, and I'm using a tall pan because I don't want this to boil over, because there is a possibility of that. And I have, with the ratio, a half a cup of honey here. So it's not going to be not sweet, but it's going to be pretty sweet. So we're going with that. So then we're going to start heating it up. And I'm going to get my masher out, and I'm going to turn it up to about medium heat. I don't like to start off too hot. I like to get the temperature ramped up as we can. So we're going to let that heat up and start its thing. All right, we're going to let that go, and then I'll check back with you on it. Okay, now we are up to boil. You can see we've got everything all set. A nice little boil going. So I'm going to turn the temperature down a little bit, and we're going to let that simmer until that thickens, because that's going to get nice and thick. And then, yeah, it's already slowed down. So we'll just stir it and check it until that thickens up nice. And that should make a nice jam. Strawberries have a lot of pectin. I don't see any reason to add more, and I'm not going to can this. So I'm going to use most of it today, and then whatever is left, my wife will use up quickly. Now we're back. We've got our dough out, and you can see it looks pretty smooth. So I'm gonna wet my hands a little bit first, because that makes it, it's not like it makes your hands completely avoid this, but it won't be as sticky. So we're just going to do our stretch and fold. Usually try to do it to where I pick up every section of the dough. There. And we'll slap that back down. You see it's looking fairly smooth. It's already starting to sled up with some gluten. So that's the first one. So we'll be back in a half hour. Okay, we're back. It's been another half hour. Time for a second stretch and fold. And as you can see, yep, the dough is starting to shape up. It looks pretty good. It's actually feeling stronger. Cover that back up. We'll let that go another half hour. And then we did pull our jam off. So it took about 45 minutes or so. And we tried to get it up to temperature, which you want a temperature about 220 degrees, because that'll create the pectin. Bring it all together. It's still warm. It's actually steaming a little bit. So, but it tastes pretty good. Probably a little sweet. I probably could have cut back on the honey. I'll try that next time. But the strawberries were sweet and they were good, so we'll go with it. We'll leave this out to cool until we need it. Okay, here we are for number 3. Starting to get some bubbling. Yeah, that's coming up good. All right, here we have our 4th and final. Yeah, this is strengthened up pretty good. It's not ripping like it was. All right, it feels pretty good. So now we'll just let that finish proofing until it roughly doubles in size, and then it, more or less takes shape of the bowl and wants to pull away, but it won't collapse. Okay, we have our dough. Looks pretty well proofed. It's pulling away. And it comes out of the bowl pretty good. So I'm going to take this now and cut it into 3 parts, roughly equal. I mean, you can measure this if you want, weigh it if you want to really get accurate with it, but I think this should be good. And I'm going to roll it out, put them into a bowl. So this one feels a little light. And I find to roll them out, it's better to do it on the silicone mats. I've tried to do it on parchment paper once, the only other time I tried this, and it was just, the paper just didn't have enough substance. But at least on the mats, it gives it a little more substance, and then when you're done, when you stack them, you can leave them on here because you can cut it on here. And yeah, this is still a little sticky to work with, so it's a little bit hard to roll out. So you don't want to change directions. But I think you can get a decent shape with this way. And I don't want to exceed the size of the borders. So then I'm going to set that aside. And because what I'm going to do is roll all 3 of these out. This might actually be better. I have a plastic roller, the silicone one, that isn't supposed to be as sticky. It's probably sticking to this wood more than anything. So anyway, so I'll get these rolled out to approximately the size I want. A nice even circle that fits in this mat, because if it fits in this mat, it'll fit on the baking sheet, which is what I'm going to bake it on. And then it makes it easy to move it around, because we're still going to cold proof this, and I'm probably going to let it roll all night. I'm going to let it sit in the fridge for about an hour and kind of set up and cool down. Yeah, this is actually just, I don't really think I need the roller. All right, so we've got 3 equally shaped pieces. So I'm going to stack them, and then I'm going to cover them with saran wrap and put them on a tray sheet and put it in the fridge. And we'll let that sit up for about an hour, and then we'll come back and we'll stack them all together and put the jam in the middle, and then do the final shaping, and then we'll put it back in the cover and put it back in the fridge overnight. All right, after a day of getting stuff ready, we're ready to shape this into a star pattern. I did cover it with some parchment paper. You can kind of see, if you look, I don't know how well that shows up, you can see how wrinkled it isn't pulled in from the moisture, but I was trying to keep as much of the moisture in the dough as possible. So I'll take this off. This top one will be our bottom, and we will take it and spread our strawberry jam out. Now, I had a chance to try this after it finally fully cooled with the honey, the amount I added, and it doesn't suck. It is good It is not too sweet, which I feared it would be, but after I did it, it is very good strawberry jam. My wife will probably be mad I didn't make more of it, but she can eat this instead of putting jam on her toast. She can make this as toast for the next week. All right, so we got a nice layer spread out. And I'm leaving probably about a 1/2 inch to the edge because I don't want it all the way to the edge. I don't want it leaking out. All right, now we'll take the second one. And what I'm going to do is flip this up side down and line that up pretty good and peel it away. There. That looks pretty good. And this is nice and cooled, so it's easier to work with. That will take up what's left of the moisture. And we'll put another layer of the jam down. And this is why I made this dough 1.5 times the size, because the last time I did this, I added meat to it. And I put sausage, cooked sausage, bacon, and Canadian bacon in here, and did it the exact same way, but I took a single loaf size and spread it out and cut it into 3 and spread it out. And the top layer ended up being a little thin, and I just don't think it was as good as it should have been. So I wanted more dough, more bread in this recipe. That's the beauty of baking. You try something, if it doesn't work out 100%, you gotta try it again. All right. And then we put our third layer over the top. I'm gonna try to kind of squish this in. This one got a little more rolled out. I think this was the first one I did that this was the first one that I used the pin on, and I think I made it a little bigger than necessary. All right, that seems to stick pretty good. So we're gonna set this aside, and we're gonna set that aside. Now, I need my template. Just want to make a ring here, ring shape, just to give you a little guide. And this is a little bigger than I wanted, so I'm gonna go just inside, probably about 3/8 of an inch. I'm gonna cut this, first we're gonna do quarters. And then we're gonna cut each section into thirds. Because once you do this, you can kind of guesstimate and get it fairly accurate. Once again, it doesn't have to be perfect. Those two are really big, so I'm going to cut that in half, and that one. So this isn't perfect. That's what we call rustic. All right, so I'm going to take these. Now you can go either inwards or out. I prefer to go out, roll them twice, and then bring them together and kind of pinch the ends together. Now, you just want to do it the same. If you're going to pick a direction, you just want to make them the same. So we twist it, I twist twice, and then I just bring the ends together. Yeah, and even with my wanting to keep the dough, the jam in a 1/2 inch, it's still coming out a bit. But that's all good. I'm going to put that back in the pan. I'm going to cover it with parchment. Then I'm going to put the towel over it to weigh it down, because we're going to try to keep a bunch of the moisture in. But we're going to let this proof overnight, and then in the morning we'll bake. And it will all come together wonderfully. All right, good morning. So we've got our bread proofing overnight. Now we're going to bake it. See, it looks pretty good. So I'm going to put it in the, I've got the oven preheated to 450 degrees. And I've got a pan in the oven so that we can create some steam. And I'm going to bake that for 25 minutes, and then we'll remove the steam. Okay, now we take the water out. Get hit in the face with plenty of steam. All right, been 20 minutes, time to check. Yep, we're right at 200. So that looks all done. So now we'll let it cool, because if you cut into it too early, you just ruin it. All right, we've got this all cooled off, and I'm going to slice into it and see how this looks. Yep. Looks pretty good. I'm wondering, it looks like the strawberry might have kept it pretty moist, but it's pretty close. I'm not going to cover the whole thing. I made some icing, just a simple icing. Now, I did make the powdered sugar for it with some honey granules that I had, and I put that in a food processor with I put a cup of that in the food processor, and then a tablespoon of cornstarch, and blended it up in the food processor. And then I just added about 1.5 tablespoons to 2 tablespoons of milk, and 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla. I'm just going to drizzle this over the top. If I were serving this, for a party or a get-together, a family get-together, breakfast or what have you, I would cover the whole thing. But I'm going to end up just freezing this. I'm going to slice it up into smaller pieces, freeze it, and then we can toast it and thaw it and eat it as we want, and not have to eat the whole thing. But we're going to give this that doesn't suck. So I hope you'll want to try it, be adventurous, and enjoy it. Thanks for watching.